Hi there, it's Nichol Magouirk, and this month for the June 2013 Studio AE Blog Hop, we're featuring the new stamp set by Ali Edwards. And this stamp set has a bunch of fun hand-drawn banners with hand-drawn summer-themed sentiments, and I thought it would be fun to show how to use them for home decor as opposed to a scrapbook page layout or project life or cards or something like that, which they obviously are perfectly themed for, and I will be using them for definitely a scrapbook page layout or several scrapbook page layouts and project life for sure in upcoming projects that you'll see on my blog. But for today, I am making these really fun, these big rosettes that are all decorated. You can see lots of different layers and things, and I'm just securing them to some little dowel rods and then decorating them and attaching my banners. So I'm first going to show you how I created my banners to have color. First, I'm just taking a scrap piece of smooth white cardstock here, and I just ran my little chalk pad or the little chalk buddy thing over it. The chalk helps the embossing powder only stick to where I'm stamping the Versamark ink, so I really like to use it when I am using embossing powder because I don't want any little flakes migrating to any other place or sticking to any other part of my paper. I want it to any excess to tap off. So I'm just going to stamp a couple of the different sentiments here, a couple of those banners. And I'm going to use some white embossing powder. Just going to sprinkle that on, make sure they're covered really good and tap off the excess. And then I'm going to just heat emboss that with my heat embossing tool, which actually is at a different table, and I didn't move my camera over there to show you just heating it this time. So next I am going to take these and I am going to add some color. It started with a lighter color of ink and the faded jeans, and it wasn't quite the right color to match the papers I'm using, so I switched to the chipped sapphire, which was perfect. So this is the Tim Holtz chipped sapphire distress ink, and I applied that with the ink blending tool, and I just rubbed that on really good till I got a good saturation of color. And then I'm going to take the Barn Door Distress ink and apply color in the same way to this banner here that says Shine On. So you can add as little or as much color as you want, or a couple of different colors and blend them together, however you want to do it. I simply just used one color for each banner. And then I just took a dry cloth and wiped it over the top to remove any of that excess ink that pooled on top of the embossed imaging. So that gives so you can see that really crisp, clean, clear white embossing powder. And then I'm going to cut out each of the banners. Next, I'm going to show how I die cut all of the rest of the pieces here, because I did a lot of die cutting just with different dies and things that I had in my collection, as well as a lot of pattern paper, and quite a lot of it is things that I've had laying around for quite a while. This is one of those projects that's really fun to go through your stash, and I kind of call it shop your stash, and find things that you have and maybe have had for a while and haven't used, and find uses for, or things that you have and you remember, oh yeah, I have that and I want to use it. So I love using up things in my home decor projects like this. So I was able to, this long rosette die, this one is actually from Stampin' Up. I don't even know if it's still available. I've had it for a while. You can also create your own rosettes using a scoring tool like the Martha Stewart scoring board or other scoring boards or things like that. So next I am going to stamp just a couple of pieces because I need to stamp them and then die cut them out. Again, this is a stamp set from Stampin' Up! That I have had laying around. It's listed in the supply list in the blog post on my blog, and I am just stamping each of these little medallion shapes on some cardstock using the Midnight Muse. It's just a nice dark navy ink. And then I'm going to take the coordinating framelits dies, which are also from Stampin' Up! And Sizzix, and lay them right over what I've stamped. I really love the framelits because you can stamp first and then die cut, so you have that perfect placement. I like to use sticky notes to hold my framelits in place as they run through my die cut machine so they don't shift and ruin my stamping. I've had that happen a few too many times and had to redo it, so I always like to use a little sticky note and hold that in place. And you can usually use them several times before they kind of lose their stickiness and you have to replace them. I also love that I can do several at a time like you see here, so that it kind of alleviates having to run it through 4 times as I would have to. I'll just have to run it through twice. Once with those 3 and then once for this big one here. So these are awesome. They look kind of plain, laid out like they are here, but once you get them all layered together, they make this really cool floral, and they really kind of pull that whole rosette together and make the centerpiece really nice and cool, so that when I add my Studio AE stamped banner, it has something really substantial. I have something substantial to tuck it into. Now this is another Ali Edwards stamp set that's summer themed, and I just loved the kind of definition style of this particular stamp and thought it would work perfectly with this month's Studio AE stamp set. So I went ahead and used it, and then I'm using a fishtail banner or pennant die. It's actually a die set. It's probably my favorite one. If you've seen any of my videos, you've probably seen it used because I use it all the time. It's a set of several banner type dies, and it works great for all kinds of things. And I'm just going to create another banner from that definition, and you can see that here. I'll just pop that out. So then I have 2 banners to tuck into the center of my rosette, which is just perfect. I love that. And I did that with all 3 of the rosettes that you see. 2 of them have Ali Edwards stamps on them, and the other one has, I think, an old Stampin' Up! Definition stamp, just something I found that I thought coordinated. So there you see those other framelits going through. So even though this is the Studio AE blog hop, I'm showing the whole process for creating these. I was starting to get my house ready for like the 4th of July and summer themed. I don't always decorate a whole lot for that, but I do love red, white, and blue kind of any time of the year, and so I thought I would maybe try to do a few homemade decorations this year, and I saw something somewhere and it kind of inspired this, and from there this kind of just snowballed into a completely different project, but I love how it turned out. So then I'm going to take this big star die, which I think this is a paper tray ink die, I believe. I kind of just grabbed things from all over my craft room today to create this project, just using another little 6x6 piece of pattern paper here. Now these are the rosettes that I cut, and it did take 2 sheets of 12x12 paper to make this rosette. And I've already pre-folded all of them, and I've added adhesive to one of the ends there, you can see, and then I'm just going to start putting them together, and I'm just layering one end right over where I put that adhesive, secure that, then I just kind of fold it back up, and I'll continue to do that all the way with all 4 of these pieces. You could use more if you wanted to. I would say about 4 is the minimum. You really need that many to make it not stretch too far.
You guys really had some
I don't think you would be able to get a very nice rosette without doing at least the four pieces like you see here. One of the other great things about this die is you can see you could use that scallop edge or the kind of pinked or zigzag edge there, which is the one I ended up using. And then you attach those 2 loose ends the same way and fold it in towards the center. Pretty easy. I'll show you how I glue that all together after a bit. I'm going to die cut the rest of the pieces for my project. This is another My Favorite Things die. This is my very favorite doily die that they have. I forgot to put my metal shim in there. It is a very, very detailed die, and if you don't use some sort of a shim, and I really like this one, this is the metal shim from Memory Box. If you don't use a metal shim, you're not going to get a good cut with it. I have tried all sorts of different ways to use a shim, and this is the best way I've found to die cut this particular die. It is extremely detailed, but I promise you it's worth it. It is just a really cool die. So if you like being able to make your own doilies out of any paper that you have in your stash, this is a great one. So you can see that not all the pieces have quite popped out. It comes with this little coordinating piece, and it has little nubs or little bumps on it, and I don't even know if I'm using it right, but I lay it over it and then I just kind of rub my finger and they pop right out. Because it's so detailed and they're so teeny tiny, I think you have to work at it just a little bit, but if you use that metal shim, they will die cut all the way through. They might not pop out like a regular die would, so you have to use this little tool. You could also just rub your finger over it. I do that too sometimes to get them all those little die cut pieces to pop out. Okay, so that is all of the die cutting for this project. And I'm going to use my hot glue gun, and I just punched a random circle from a scrap piece of paper to use on the back as the base for my rosette. You can use a coordinating paper if you have one. I just grabbed some out of my scrap bin. Then I'm just going to add some glue to the center there. Now, ignore this for just a couple of minutes because I ran out of hot glue. And I had to run to the store actually and buy some more. So before I finish hot gluing anything, I'm going to show you how I put together the middle piece. And I simply layered all of my other die cut and stamped pieces together, and I'm just adhering them with some little dot adhesive, nothing too strong. I am going to sew a button through the center of this for 2 reasons. It is a lot to sew through, but I really felt like by sewing through all of the layers with my needle and thread, I'm securing them together, so the chances of like the button or a couple of the top layers eventually maybe coming loose and falling off, I don't have to worry about that so much. So I really like to just take my needle and thread and sew it on and tie it in the back into a knot. So you'll see that here in just a second. I have all of my layers. You do have to work through it a little bit. You could use a piercing tool, probably would make it much easier to get your needle and thread through. Or use a bigger needle. I use kind of a small one. And then I have this clear button. I'm not sure where I got mine. I know I saw some, I think maybe even in the most recent Stampin' Up! Catalog, but I think you can get them all kinds of places. I've had these for quite a while. I didn't really want the center of mine to be too, I didn't want the button to be colorful, I guess. I really just wanted to keep the focus on the rest of the stuff going on. Plus I'm adding a little bit more ribbon and twine before I sew the button down. I'm just looping it together and Guess it's super secret. I got out of the frame. I'm sorry about that. And I laid it underneath there and very carefully pushed my needle through to secure that in place, and then I'm just tying it off in the back. Nice secure knot, trim that, and when I flip it over you'll see everything is nice and secure on the front. And then I'll hot glue that to the center of my rosette. So there's what it looks like, all decorated, and I'm ready to add my fun stamped banners. So there is the We Love Sunshine, and then the sunshine definition. And I just used a little adhesive to tuck those in, and then once I have them where I want them, I just lift them up carefully and then add just a dab of hot glue behind the end that I've tucked underneath to secure them so they don't fall out. Okay, so now that I have my hot glue, I can show you how I finished securing my rosette. I actually kind of had to start over with a different circle because my other one, I didn't have enough hot glue and it didn't stay together. So I just threw that, I pulled it off, it wasn't even attached except for one tiny little piece. So I pulled it off, threw it away, and I'm using this one. So I just kind of pushed my rosette back onto that circle with the hot glue, hold it in place, and then I like to put hot glue in the center clear up to the top. And I hold it there until it dries. You don't have to hold it very long, for just a second. And I dropped my package of dowel sticks right into the hot glue, of course. And you can see that it stayed. It's dried enough now. And then I just set that aside while I finish what I'm doing. Kind of arrange it a little bit. The hot glue dries really fast, so you kind of have to make sure you have it where you want it before you let it sit there too long. I'm going to add a little hot glue, and then I've got some ribbon that I'm just going to, I've kind of folded over onto itself. I want it to dangle down a little bit, so I'm just going to lay that there. I have a couple different ones, and then I have hot glue that's sticking to me, which is always a nice mess. And then I'm going to add a little bit more hot glue and add a little bit of red gingham ribbon here. And you can see, not very nice or neat, but it all gets hidden. I'm going to smush it in between my two layers. Go ahead and add some more hot glue to the back of my decorated piece here with the banners, and then I'll just push that right to the center of my accordion rosette. And then I'm going to flip it over, find the center, and I'm going to take that little dowel rod and figure out where I'm going to put it, and I'm going to put it right there. I'm going to carefully just pop that up and stick some hot glue down inside of that little, where that fold is, to hold that stick in place. I kind of moved it out, and then I'll just push it right back into that glue, and it gives it a nice secure bond. And that is it. So easy, and you can make these in so many different ways. So I hope you have enjoyed this, and please check out the rest of the Studio AE projects this month. Thanks for watching.